right, let's talk about us. That sounds so cheesy,
Yeah.
like a romantic date. No,
Yeah, exactly.
I wanna just use the time for us all sitting home. I mean, you're actually doing some great stuff. I'm not. Um, and
Well, you are
yeah,
doing the Zoom
I'm trying.
Zoom exercises. I think is awesome.
I'm trying. So I'm just trying to make the best out of the time being homebound and be like, all right, let's just throw some stuff out there. I mean, we've talked about this before, and I already sat down with a couple of members just chatting about, hey, the experience here. But this is not like an advertising movie or something. This should be like, okay, like what's your story? How did you start? And how difficult for us was it to kind of get on, well, sort of the right track? And so if you could start just very briefly summarizing, all right, so when did you start with us? Like how come and what was the first issue? And kind of just we're gonna go back and forth between the two of us about the last what 2 years now,
Yeah.
because I think there's a lot of people out there having maybe not similar issues like your shoulder issues, but at least having like the same problem process in the head. And let's see if we can help some people with just hey, you're not alone.
Yeah, I think this is the very important point that many people, and this is what many physios say, that many people quit before they actually give themselves a chance to get somewhere, because the process is so hard, because it takes such a long time. Uh, they usually just say, it doesn't work. Just skip it. I will live my life in a very limited way, and it's fine. And yeah, if there is nobody to sort of push them and show them that there is at the end of this long road there is actually hope even for the severe cases, then I think you just quit, because it becomes unbearable, right? Like, at least for me, what was crucial was to have this feedback, and yeah, like even like stupid thing, like somebody repeating to me that this is gonna change, even if it feels shitty, you cannot quit, because if you put enough hours in, it's actually gonna click at some point, it's gonna work. And if you are in the middle of it and it's like in my case, you cannot raise your arm, it's very difficult to believe it. And if you are trying, if it's only you and your thoughts, you're having very difficult time to convince yourself that this is gonna happen. Even if you read online somewhere that maybe, it's very difficult.
Mm-hmm. So
Yeah.
let's take a step back, and so let's give a little bit of background information yourself, like your sporting background, like climbing, and I mean you're, as I said before, you're a physicist, so you work a lot with your brain, right? But you're also like very much into sports. So when did you start climbing?
So I started climbing back in 1999, so previous century. And I think the first couple of years were like weekend climbing, so not really pushing hard. And after maybe 7 years, I started to train more and train regularly, and not only climb, but do some other auxiliary exercises, going for like a coaching sessions and so on. Yeah, and I was like sort of stably progressing since then. And then I moved to Austria in like 7 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And well, everything sort of continued. I was climbing, and I found new climbing partners here in Austria, and I was to my standards, I was pushing quite hard. I think I joined the first CrossFit version of Grex gym like 5 years ago or something like that. I've been coming for sessions. Yeah, and I was sort of training quite a bit of climbing related exercise things. But I think because of my body background, let's call it this way, like hypermobility of the joints and so on, I think I entered some motion patterns which got reinforced, and it actually weakened the whole structure. So when I was training 2.5 years ago, the system collapsed at some point, and I messed up the shoulder. I was just trying to work on my one arm pull up when something snapped in my shoulder, and this is the beginning of the difficult part of the story, because before everything was going beautiful, and I was feeling I'm still on the guarantee, everything was working as it should. But then it was quite a mental battle to accept that actually something happened which will not go away in 2 weeks.
Yeah, rest for 2 weeks and just ice it and take some anti-inflammatory stuff and you'll be good. So that did not work out, right? So that was 2.5 years ago, right?
Yeah, it involved like quite a bit of doctor advices. I was going to like 5 or 6 different specialists in the shoulder area, and doing multiple X-rays, NMR scans, and so on. But there was no conclusion. The only conclusion was that I shouldn't touch the shoulder with the scalpel, because in my case, it would only ruin it more. So all of them, even though they are surgeons, they were arguing against any surgery. So the only route possible was basically the physio and training option.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, like to tell you what the status was at the time. When the inflammation of the shoulder hit really badly, my hand was just hanging. I was not able to brush my teeth. I was not able to tie my shoelaces. Nothing. It was just hanging down.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
I mean, I can still remember it vividly, because when we started, I mean, training, quote unquote, like working out, is working on some stuff. So let's just sum it up a bit. So how would you say was your knowledge about your own body at that time? Because you were like super active. And I mean, people need to know, like, when you talk about climbing, this doesn't mean like, I don't know, like 20 minutes indoor on an easy route. No, you had like very decent and very difficult routes, like outside, like for multiple hours. So it's not just like, hey, I did 3 pull-ups and at some point I ruined my shoulder. So you were stressing it pretty heavily, right?
Yes, I would say, like, prior to the injury, I was training like 5 days a week, including some gym sessions and going outdoors, climbing in the real rocks for, I don't know, 2 full days in a week or something like that. It was quite a bit of challenge, but like conscience-wise, like to understand the body, I think I was only focusing on the business end of the climber's body, which is fingers, right? So this I understood, and I knew that I should train the antagonists, and that I should, I don't know, use particular types of holds not to ruin my fingers and so on. But that's pretty much it. I never trained anything like specifically to to have proper rhythm of the motion or anything like that. I was just moving.
Right, and basically when we started working, it was like for almost like 6, maybe even more months. It was about, okay, finding muscles that, I mean, you were really strong. Like you had multiple strict pull-ups and like on your fingers, 2 fingers, 1 finger whatsoever, working on a 1-hand pull-up. So you were decently strong, right? So from an outside perspective, this looks weird, because I mean, you're like way above average when it comes to pulling strength, like way above average. And yet it still like created some issues. So when we started working, it was more about, hey, finding some muscles in the shoulder, like whether it's the lat dorsi or the pec for stabilizing. But I mean, do you remember how long it took for us to kind of make the pec work?
Yeah. I mean, this was
feel tension in the pec, and like the fucking thingy we did and didn't work out in the beginning. So I mean, I wanna share that story, because we need to understand that this takes so much time. This is not like, give me 5 exercises for my pec because they're all working, and I'll do those exercises and I'll tick off boxes, and all of a sudden it's like, boom, it's working and my shoulder's fine again.
No, it's extremely tedious process. Like we would have a session after session where we would work on super light loads, actually, with I don't know, some piece of rubber wheel which I was just trying to squeeze or something like that, and I was like trying to rewire my head to activate the muscle. and we were like searching for the muscles which are not damaged, which are able to work and take over some of the loads from the shoulder, from the part of the shoulder which is messed up, right? And coming back to the overall strength, I think in your archives you might even have the video of me doing a pull-up, and you can see that clearly I was doing the pull-ups, but I was using like some completely weird muscles which are not supposed to do the pull-up. So I think this was the real root of the problem.
Right. So that's one part of my like the big message is, yes, you can still do pull-ups, but it doesn't necessarily mean you're using quote unquote the right muscles, right? So I mean, once you're strong enough, you can do pull-ups with only your biceps. You can do pull-ups with only your shoulders. You can do pull-ups, but it doesn't necessarily mean like it's good for your body. And I mean, forget good and bad, but this is about, okay, and honestly, you're only going to listen once there's pain involved, right?
Yeah, if something breaks, you start to look into that, right? You become expert on your
exactly. But once
right?
you reach that point where like your shoulder starts hurting or you hear that snapping and it's like, oh shit, like all your senses are attuned now. Like you pay so much more attention. And so I mean, it's not a good thing that there's pain, but for me, it's the only way that you're actually going to listen to your body, right? So there's a back and forth. I don't want you to wait until the pain actually comes, but at some point it's like, all right, if you need pain, like train as you go, and maybe you're going to listen once the shoulder starts really hurting.
Yes. So my message here would be that I heard the warning signs in the past before the injury happened. So I had some mild pains coming back, or if I stopped training for 3 weeks, there was like something really wrong with the shoulder, and I was like ignoring it and training again, and it was going away. But I never thought about it. I never thought that I should address it. I was like, it will go away as any other thing. And also those problems with using wrong muscles, I think they aggravate if you have any kind of like condition like I have, like hypermobility of the joints, for instance, because then your body is allowed to go into the planes of motion which wouldn't be allowed for any other person. So you can actually abuse the other muscles, which you know how to activate them, and they can pull in a very weird planes, and then you start damaging your body basically.
Mm-hmm. So I mean, the kind of the background knowledge for me was always, I see our nervous system, our nervous system loves autonomy, right? So the nervous system just hates being dependent on somebody else. So it wants to create, the entire goal is autonomy. The problem is that means if you really want to learn, you can't be on autopilot. So that means you have to face the situation, and pain is a very good start to kind of make sure you're not on autopilot anymore. It's like, no, I'm not going to do like 5x5 pull-ups. It's like, no, I'm going to do whatever, 3x3 or 4 reps of some pulling and see if I can feel my lat dorsi on my right side.
I mean, if you remember, our first sessions were about the breathing and sort of switching off the autopilot, right? And this was also like many sessions in the beginning we were just spending on the breathing techniques, like how to breathe when you are executing some movement, to be conscious about it, because your autopilot is very strong and it doesn't want you to interfere with it, right? So it's to hack into that, it takes quite a bit of effort.
Right. So because the autopilot, I mean, is awesome for like surviving, obviously, for like breathing and like normal daily activities, but it's also going to create patterns in your whatever sport, in your training. So for us, I mean, I tried to stay as positive as possible, although the shoulder like was really nagging for you. But we always saw it like as a chance. Like now it's your chance to actually start working on some stuff. And I know it was not always very positive in terms of, especially like the setbacks. Yeah. Right. This is not a straight line. This is not a hockey stick goal or win or effort. These are like, there's bumps and bruises everywhere. Like we had times when, all right, we had an awesome session. You went climbing the next day, everything was fine. And 2 days later it was like, shit, shoulder's starting to hurt again. right?
I mean, like the whole going to climbing was a big breakthrough, right? I think it was you who was telling me to actually go and try something, and also Dr. Andreas Vantore in Frankfurt, who from the beginning said like, man, don't sit at home, like don't
Hmm.
stop climbing, because this is what motivates you. If you don't do that, you will not get enough of the mental strength to actually carry on with the exercises. And I think this was one of the like very good advices which gave me the push. So if you are like messed up and somebody tells you to only do, I don't know, dumbbell training, if your main goal was to, I don't know, row on the boat or something else, this is giving you very little motivation to carry on without seeing a goal, right? So if you can sort of cut out a little bit of your favorite activity, just a little bit, which works, it's already like miles. You're already miles ahead, and you are much better off than just doing exercises. I think this was the mental part which gave me the motivation to survive, right?
Right, because I mean, the main goal is always to, I mean, get back to your sport as soon as possible. But okay, so what I want to finish with is what I saw in the last, well, we haven't seen each other for 2 weeks now, 3 weeks, was the major shift from your like for your training approach, because you did a lot of stuff at home as well, because you were
Yeah.
traveling, like going back and forth with work. But for me, the biggest goal was you started to kind of have those epiphanies of, hey, my right lat is firing today. Today it's not. So how come? And you've been like deliberately working on that stuff, and that's my job. Like I wanna encourage you, and I wanna make it enticing for you to kind of jump deep into that process of yeah, I want to figure that stuff out. It's the same with like finding something against the virus.
Mm-hmm.
At some point, you have to jump in deep and try out stuff. And yes, you're gonna make mistakes. And no, you're not gonna have success every single day. You're not gonna feel the right lat every single day. But over time, like that accumulates to you being more knowledge about your own issues. And that's my and I just hate that passive approach of fitness, as you might
Mm-hmm.
have noticed.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I want to give that back to people and be like, hey, solve it. I'm gonna help you. I'm gonna show you some stuff, but you have to do it. Like you have to figure it out. You have to put in time, and if you're gonna put in the time, you're gonna succeed.
And this is the key. I think time is the key. So you cannot expect if something is messed up quite badly, you cannot expect that this will be fixed in a month. You cannot expect it to be fixed in half a year. So if you want to learn how to hack your body to still work, even though you don't have some tendon or some muscle,
Mhm.
it takes years. And in our case, it took years. And this consciousness and conscious thinking about the body as a machine and trying to figure out which muscle is firing when you do stuff. It was also coming and going, and like some days I could feel like I control it. Some days I could feel like I just don't know what the guy is talking about. Just
Exactly.
no chance, right?
And that was obviously my challenge as well, because you're a scientist, so you like really like structured approaches, obviously, because I mean that's how you tackle your challenges and your issues. So we had to mix that, not randomness, but that kind of, all right, realizing or me making sure that it's not going to work every single day just because you did those 3 exercises.
Yeah,
That's
and
not
like
how it
yeah,
works. Go ahead.
yeah. I like from the science perspective, I really like to treat the whole thing as a bit of experiment. So if I know that first of all, I need to know what is in the place I want to fix. I want to know what kind of muscles are there. And then I want to understand where they are in my body, right? And then I can work on firing them. And this is like a nice experiment because I know that the lat is from here to here. And then I can try to induce some kind of contraction in this area, and then I can have feedback from you, right? If this is a good way to do it, right? Or is this the way that can work?
Mm-hmm.
And this experimenting part is actually, it can be kind of fun once it start to working, you know.
Exactly, but that's kind of the misery we are in the fitness industry, because the fun seems to be in just killing yourself at the end of the workout, or using more weight, or going for personal records. But the actual epiphanies are in you figuring out, like, deep down those small little rabbit holes, like, oh, this is how it's working for me. And just because I'm putting 3x3 back squats on the board doesn't mean you're going to use your glutes. Or just because I put pull-ups on the board doesn't necessarily mean you're going to use your lats.
Yeah, maybe it's a truism, but this is like a quality before quantity, right? This is yeah, and also knowing when to stop. So
right.
You don't stop when you are exhausted. You stop when you are not performing the exercise in a correct way, right? Yeah.
But I think that's kind of shifting the focus in our training, or at least in our gym, from like reps and sets and time and personal records towards, all right, what are you actually, like, what muscles are you actually using when you're doing back squats? I love back squatting, don't get me wrong, but if you don't train what you're supposed to be, quote unquote, like, what's the point? If you're doing push-ups and you're not feeling your chest, like, what's the point?
Yeah, you're doing triceps push-ups, right?
You're doing something else. That's the same as you told the story about the pull-ups. You can do pull-ups, obviously, and you can be strong, but it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to use the right muscles for it.
Yeah, right, meaning that it will not result in a disaster down the road, right? This is what the right means. Because I guess if you're not an athlete, you could survive with this pattern, and you would not even notice in the future, right? But if you want to do something a bit harder, then then those bad patterns are firing back at you.
Exactly. So that's probably why it took us so long, because you've been climbing for that long and you've been like very competent at it, and that actually makes it harder because those patterns are way more ingrained now than like with soccer mom or average Joe just training once a week or riding a bike. But that also shows for me that for all the mass issues out there, like back pain or whatever, neck pain or shoulder pain, like, it's actually not that complicated. The problem is no one's talking about it, like what it actually takes. And it's not like we did not do like the most sexy stuff ever. Like, we had really boring sessions where the only focus was, all right, let's just make the right pec fire or the right lat fire, and that's it. And of course, like, we need some blood flow in it, and we need some intensity in it, and we can still train like lower body differently than upper body. But at the end of the day, it was very basic training.
It was, yeah. I mean, I should also like give the credit to the initial guy who took care of me, who was this Daniel Nesiba, who is a physiotherapist in Vienna, because I think this was the very beginning where I was so miserable. I was really like in the terrible pain and not being able to do anything. He started to ignite this little spark that I can actually do something, to even though it was only lying on the floor and doing this, which was the maximum effort I could do at the time. And once I started to feel progress in this part, that actually it works. And after 4 weeks of this or 5 weeks of this, I could move it a bit more. This sort of convinced me that it makes sense to try harder, and then coming to you like again, right? And discussing what we can do. I think this was also a necessary step in the very beginning to like transition from the medical inspection to very light physiotherapy, and then to the sort of a more functional movement.
But I think that's exactly where we can finish off is I think the empathy part and giving hope, but not just talking about it, but doing stuff, and you're realizing, okay, this is working, it's better the next day, and yes, it will get worse as we progress because you're putting more stress on it, but it's a constant back and forth. It's a constant bouncing off of, all right, we need more stress, but we got to be careful that your body's not going to react like weirdly because it feels more stress. And that's, I think that's the tough mental part, right? Because we have to up the stress because you have to go back to that climbing wall. Like that's our main goal. Like, it's awesome if we do some breathing stuff, we pull on bands, and that's great. But I mean, the end goal is like, we want to be back on those mountains again.
You need to transfer it. Yeah, exactly.
And that's constant like shifting between, all right, how much stress can we take that day? And when it is too much, but that takes a lot of explaining the process behind it. So
and it's also like another thing which is mentally difficult and was difficult for me was actually dealing with those setbacks which were caused by the training, right? Because of course, if you try to pull a bit harder, you will go out of your range of motion, which is still controllable, and then it starts to hurt again, and it's difficult to escape this feedback loop that the training is bad because it causes pain, right?
Yeah.
This was, I think, mentally for me very challenging. I was mentally like, I don't want to do it. It just hurts more.
Yeah. But that's that logical approach of like 1 + 1 = 2. That means training and gym and that exercise equals pain, right? Yeah. And of course that's not true. Although it is true, like the reaction is valid, but figuring out that, okay, take your time, 2 days, like go back. So I used maybe something else and now it starts to hurt again. And going through that process, like you learned, and that's what I'm very proud of. Like you learned so much about not only your shoulder, but about yourself and how to approach stuff and all that mental things that are coming up. And I think for me, that's the value of good training.
Yeah. So like paradoxically, I think this injury was, well, it made me a better climber in a way, even though I'm not climbing as hard as I used to, but I'm like way more conscious, and I would have never thought about training in this way and perform the motion with consciousness if this didn't happen, right? So of course it's messed up my shoulder, and maybe I will not be able to reach my full potential which I had before, but still I think it created I think it prevented much more severe injuries which could have come down the line.
Well, hell yeah. And there's been some dark times as well. Like, let's not downplay like the first couple of months and when you had setbacks, like that's drowning yourself. Like that's nagging. That takes a big toll on yourself. Like when you have setbacks, but you kind of not push through, but you go through it and you learn from it. And then again and again and again, and eventually, now you're back to like not where you've been before, but like to a normal state.
Yeah, like even if the goal is that the thing hurts a bit less after the training session than the last time, right? Even this is a achievement.
Oh, I think we got some guests now.
I see.
He's 15 minutes too early because the class is starting at 12. All right, I think he's the bouncer, so we gotta finish off now. All right, Matt, thanks for taking the time.
No worries.
Appreciate it. I'm very proud of your progress, and I guess we'll work some more once you found the solution for the virus.
Yes, hopefully. Yeah, thank you, Greg, for all the time that you spent. This was really for me, it was very revealing, and I learned a lot. So thank you.
What a welcome. So say hi to Anna. I can still wave at her.
Anna, can you wave into the shelf? She's waving.
The ghost is waving. I love it. All right, Matt. Thanks for taking the time, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
See you, Greg. Ciao.
Bye-bye.
Ciao, ciao.